Good day, everybody. Reed here. I'm back at home today, and I have all of these buckets of compostables to deal with today. What we do is we fill our material in those buckets I just showed you, and then we do these bins here, and then once a year we empty them out. Now let's take a look at this bin here. Doing some extra watering in there. So there's the material in there, and if you look at the side, it's below the midpoint on these pallets here. Right now, when I filled this up, it was, a cake or a bread, and it like goes over the edge of your vessel. That's what this was like a year ago. It has shrunk by more than half in there. Great. Change up. And the other one, if you're one, has actually been there for longer, but I emptied out the one that has these tubes coming out of it into this one, and so that's why it's bigger right now, and I just watered it. You might ask, why are there all these tubes in here? Well, there's a thing called Johnson-Su bioreactor, and this is not really that, but it's similar to it. And so I'm doing it the lazy man style. Frequently, people have all these tubes upright. What I'm doing here is I'm just leaning them against it. The idea is to have no greater than 12 inches of space between your tubes so that there's airflow going into your pile here. And if you're wondering, in those buckets there, it's greens and browns for the ease of composting. And if you want a good composting course, I invite you to go over to the Survival Podcast, Jack Spirko's website. I don't remember the name of the course, but he's got a great composting course on there that'll teach you all about this method, only he's going to do it better than I'm doing it here. But given the amount of change that I see in a year in the pile size, I'm thinking that I'm using hay on the edge. It's like a mulch hay. And so that's very breathable on the outside. And so as I'm filling this up, I will, pick up a tube a bit from the edge to try and get them closer. But down in the center, you can see they're way closer than 12 inches together. I'm curious to see what my result looks like in a year's time. Ideally, it's mid-July 2024 right now, so I'll be checking on this again. I'm going to check on it in the spring of 2024, because that's when I want to actually use it and get it onto the garden. And I'll probably come and check on it in the late autumn, like November of 2024, to see how it's doing. Because if I can get it onto the beds quicker, that'd be awesome. But the idea is that this creates a greater dominant fungal activity in the compost pile rather than bacterial dominance. To be seen. We'll see how my method, which is, very sloppily done, goes. But I thought I'd give you a little peek at the setup. The tubes are extra long. I'm going to be cutting them because I want to clear out my chicken coop where I'm doing a deep layer mulch, or a deep layer bedding, I should say, in there. And it is getting tall in there, but the real reason to clean it out is so that way I can build another system similar to this with their bedding material, and then have that for gardens this next growing season. With that, if you have any questions about this and other things, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to send you to someone else who knows more than me, or answer them myself if I have enough information for you. With that, have too much fun. Hey there. I just thought I'd give you an after I finished look at it all. So there is my pile, and I decided to prop up my tubes a little bit with some boards. You can see that it is, like I said, this one's a bit above in the center, and the reality is, like, the corners are actually a bit further down, maybe by like 1/8 the side of the pallet. And I'm about to just water down the top of it all, get nice and wet, and that's all the water I add. And just to see, there's all my empty buckets. And so each of those buckets I sprayed out with the hose to clean them up. And since I'm only using them outside, it's probably good enough. And I'm going to leave these tubes in here for at least a week. It's just really a time thing, but as soon as I need to use them for my chicken coop clean out with its deep litter, I will come and grab them and see how they pull out. I forgot until the last moment that I wanted to actually mix some char in with all this to create a biochar in the mixture. So what I did is I just ran up to my coop. I grabbed like a fifth of a 5-gallon bucket, so about a gallon of the char, and I sprinkled it across the whole of the top here. And then I mixed it in with a stick. For a moment, then I just shoved the stick into the pile, and it's better than nothing. And again, like this is like the sloppy version of this project. You can definitely see like from the center here, you know, these tubes are probably more like 3 feet-ish from each other. Now the interesting thing being like as they go down into the pile, they get, vastly closer together. And so ponderance is really like, as that's going down, how actually close is the soil. There might just be like a little cone in the center here, but with the reality of like, okay, I've got air coming in on top, so that can technically go down a foot. At which point, I think my method here is actually pretty okay. And the same thing with like the char getting in here so late in the game. It's a better late than never. It's better to do something than not do anything. And to go metaphysical on some of this, like I'm creating a life system here. So like a bioreactor is maybe not the right term. I've heard some other people refer to it as a biodigester. And the notion that even in ourselves, we are actually ecosystems. Our microbiomes contain more of the DNA that makes us up than our own human DNA. And so in interacting with the living system, we're actually in a bit of a conversation with the natural world. Now, this is all going to go into different garden beds and orchard spaces. As you can see from like over here, it's not a lot of material when it's done. That's probably 8 to 10 5-gallon buckets worth. So that's not going to fill the garden spaces that we have here by a long shot. Now, the key is, if I actually get the amount of life forms that I believe will be in here, that's a lot of life. And now when you read like your fertilizers at the store and they say NPK on it, or your micros and things like that, that's talking like strictly elements, periodic elements and such. And those have their place, but we're realizing that it's the life of the soil that's actually the real game. And it's my opinion and belief that everything is actually listening to its environment. So as we like speak or even just think and send out our thought forms through our actions, through our engagement, we're having a direct effect on the world. And so the attitudes that we bring to all of this, the care, the generosity, the nurturance, the well-wishing, all plays into how these systems function. And therefore, like how we function when we inevitably consume some of the fruits or vegetation or the animalness that is grown from these varied interactions. And I'm not taking it to the nth level and putting like burning the wood with different symbols to augment potential healing, rejuvenative, restorative powers in all this. But I certainly think about them as I'm doing it and after the fact when I'm moving this material out into my landscape. And again, I feel like all that plays into the benefit that this all has. Mind you, I see like on some people's products, they'll like have ingredients, and the last one or first one, depending on the person, will be something like love and gratitude or something of this sort. And I actually appreciate that intermixed with I think it's frequently a good motion to just like have that on the down low. But I thought I'd give you a little bit about that because I think that our mindsets do play into it. If you're listening to stuff in the world about scarcity and abundance mindsets, again, these things do affect us and how we're interrelating with the world. And so how we're relating to our food and the landscape also plays into all of this. With that, thanks for watching this video about me making this activated compost pile, and we'll revisit this later in the year when it's the proper time. Have too much fun.